Welcome back, sci-fi fans, to another episode of the Science Fictionary podcast. We're going to talk a little Rings of Power. Episode 3, correct? Yeah, episode 3.
Correct.
Episode 4 is coming out in about an hour and a half.
Not bad.
We're getting this in just in time. And then going forward, if you're watching our Rings of Power reviews, we're going to be attempting to bump those to Sunday afternoons. Kind of late afternoon on Sundays, so that they're not quite so. One, we can get them out a little quicker, closer to the episodes, and two, while it's still fresh. But two, Thursdays is
getting full.
Thursday's getting very full.
Lots of stuff happening.
Right. At least we don't record 2 episodes of the Science Fictionary a night.
Oh my
anymore,
gosh!
we used to do 2. We used to do 2 a night.
Yeah.
Right.
It was long.
But
I can imagine.
Yeah, our co-host got a girlfriend, and all of a sudden he doesn't have so much time anymore.
Our 22-year-old co-host suddenly got a girlfriend, and now he's like, "Oh, how about one episode?"
Oh. Oh, that was so very long ago.
Young love.
I know. So he's the best friend of Andrew's, the son of Andrew's best friend from high school.
Right.
Oh,
cool.
So, yeah.
Nice.
So kind of like your nephew / second child.
Right.
Yeah.
Bless him.
Yeah, it's like one of the funny things is like when we first started doing this, I was like, I was at the hospital when you were born, right?
Right.
Yeah, right?
Yep.
All right. Well, let's see. I think the only person in the chat right now is Ro, if he's still lurking over there. And Ro, it's going to be. The thing is, I think we could talk spoilers, but it wouldn't really spoil anything for Ro because he's still figuring out who's who.
Right.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm having that issue too, where I'm probably not going to know all the names. I know more about Tolkien than say Ro does, but I'm just as lost with the names.
When you get into these names, there's so many and they're so similar.
Yeah.
You can kind of tell which group of people you're talking about by the name because he pulled from different sources. And so it's all intentional that they sound the same.
But they all do. It's like.
But I will say the wrong
Finn.
one, and Marisha will listen to me for a minute and say, "Did you mean this?"
Yeah.
I was like, "Yeah, I did."
Yeah.
Actually.
No, that's just me at home. I'll say something, and then like 5-10 minutes later, we're like, no, I didn't mean that guy. So here's Kelly going, okay.
Yeah.
Ro put up a poll a couple days ago and said, how many times do you have to pause a show that you're watching? And I was the one who put like 5,940 some odd times.
Yeah.
I'm that person.
Usually I'll watch it through the first time, but then the next time it's like, wait. Like whenever I read the Silmarillion as a teenager, literally I had like a marker in the back so I could turn. I was like, wait, who's this person?
Yep. Oh
Exactly.
yeah, a lot of back and forth.
Lots of back and forth. I couldn't keep track of who everybody was.
Yeah.
We had in fact, I'm determined to get her on this show. While we were at Dragon Con, we got to sit and listen to John Howell, which was just a special treat.
Mm-hmm.
But we also got to, and I'm going to blank on
Leith McPherson.
Leith McPherson is the linguist on this show. She's the one responsible for making sure everyone is saying all their words correctly.
Right.
And she is
right.
Everything out of her mouth made me feel good about the way they approached the language and kind of building all of that up.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, no, she was. In fact, they had some, they have like the question and answer things, and they had a questioner who was basically like, "Can you promise me this isn't going to break my heart and suck?" Basically,
right.
And she was very emotional and very I think everybody in the room was a little bit embarrassed because she was very. And she was like, I mean, clearly.
She was a little aggressive.
Like
the person asking the question was a little aggressive.
Yeah.
So, on the internet, you expect that. When it's like standing in a panel of fans, it's kind of weird. And
but I don't think she meant it badly. I just think that she was just
I think
really
her nerves
invested.
got her when she got up there to ask the question.
But the reply that Lisa McPherson had to her, she was like, our friend who was asking with so much passion and so much love, asking, are you invested in this story? Are you committed to? That's bizarre. Are you? You're distracting me. Stop it.
I know the feeling.
And she was like, I can say that, I'm sure that you won't love everything, and I can't promise that everyone is going to love the decisions we make, but, that we're very invested and we're, and I was like, I mean, what a gracious response to, like I said, Andrew said, kind of an aggressive questioner in the panel. So yeah, that was great. That was a really great panel, and we got really cool artwork.
Yeah. Oh no, we got some really awesome numbered prints from John.
Oh, nice.
Awesome.
Nice.
Really excited about those. But so real quick, to get started here, because I haven't. So me and Dragon Buddy talked about episodes 1 and 2, but I want to hear what Marisha and Lunar Girl had just up to this point, like what y'all thought about it up through the first couple episodes. Kelly,
Marisha, you go first.
I'm really enjoying it. It's beautiful. For starters, the cinematography, the costumes are just stunning. And so if nothing else, I just enjoy that it's beautiful.
Oh my gosh.
And I think that's been one of my favorite things. For the third episode, I kept being like, I don't care about the Harfoots. I don't care about the elves. I want to go back to Numenor.
Right.
I mean, ever since we saw those first images in the trailers, I was just like, I want to see. Wow. I want to see all the Numenor things.
Right.
Yeah. And I'm really enjoying it. I'm pretty invested in Tolkien and have been, like I was one of those kids, like I said, who was combing through the Silmarillion as a teenager. And so I'm pretty invested in the world. And, the thing is, anything that wasn't actually set down in the Lord of the Rings or in an appendix, I feel like you have some leeway, especially if if Tolkien had 4 different explanations for an event. If you want to pick the one that is less well known, that doesn't hurt my feelings.
Right.
So I'm really, really enjoying the story. I think the story is beautiful. I think the characters really are. It's raising questions. I feel like it's kind of walking a good line between, sort of piquing your interest, but also giving you enough information that it's not just like Lost, where it's just like question that you never get answers for.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I'm at with it right now. So how about you, Kelly?
Oh, first, when you said the costumes, that beautiful gown that Galadriel was wearing on the white horse as she was riding, and it's just like flowing. So beautiful. It's something that I've told DB every single episode. The cinematography is absolutely amazing. Everything is just so gorgeous. The landscapes, like everything about it. I'm so into it. I'm not as much into the lore as Dragon Buddy. The way I would say would be, I know more than Bro does, but I know a ton less than you guys do. I read The Hobbit. I read the first 2 of the Lord of the Rings. I never touched the Silmarillion. But I'm so
you're more of a movie fan, kind of historically.
Yeah.
Hey, and that's totally valid. Like those are some great movies.
Yeah, definitely. I read The Hobbit as a teenager. I didn't start reading Lord of the Rings until like probably right before I met Chris, I read the first book.
Okay.
And then I didn't get to the Two Towers, but then I read most of it when I was with him when the movies started coming out.
Right.
Never made it to the third one. Kids got in the way. You know how it goes.
As they do.
Yeah.
Yep.
I know. Like these days, I don't read anything. I listen to audiobooks because I can do that and drive,
Here.
fold clothes, or wash dishes.
Yeah.
It's true.
But I am so into fantasy. I've always been into fantasy. So
Mhm.
the kings, the queens, the orcs, the elves, the dwarves, you know, and you guys know my love for Dungeons and Dragons.
Mhm.
That goes back to like early 90s. Well, actually the 80s if you count the cartoon. You guys remember
Yeah.
the cartoon?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm like huge into fantasy.
Pretty sure that cartoon might have made our Pillars of Fantasy.
Oh, nice.
It
Is
was
that
at
the
least
podcast coming
mentioned.
out?
No, that was actually probably 2 years ago that we did the Pillars of Fantasy.
I'll have to go back and find that then.
If you really like our Pillars of Fantasy, did you listen? We had the Pillars of Sci-Fi and the Pillars of Fantasy series,
Right.
where we went through the pillars of each of those things on film,
Mhm.
television, books. What else? And then there was another category, but then there was like
Other media.
there was like other media. So
Yeah.
we had like the music of Howard Shore and
Oh,
things like that. And
yeah.
so we did that for sci-fi and fantasy and walked through both of those and really tried to dig back into the
Mhm.
roots, the things that sort of affected everything that came after them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if that show didn't make the list, it was at least discussed. I very specifically remember discussing it.
Right.
Yeah. I'm very much into the story. According to DB, it's not following, like he keeps saying time crunches. They're taking 1,000 years and crunching it into now. And I'm like, okay, but I think if DB wasn't there telling me all this stuff, I would love it just the same.
Right.
Being a noob going into this, you know, it's amazing.
And when I tell her that those things where, you know, like you're crushing like 5,000 years where this happened at one time and this happened at a different time, it's almost it kind of freshens the story up for myself anyway, to where I'm looking at, you know, like how are these things connected in this universe? You know, I know what the precursors to a lot of what we're seeing happening on the screen, and they're slightly different, or they're happening at the same time as something else. So it kind of gives you a little bit of a freshness to it without totally detracting from the show itself.
It does. And like, I mean, obviously you couldn't use the real timeline like without just skipping. You'd have to almost move forward after every episode.
Yeah.
You know, you'd have an episode and you jump forward, 150 years.
Which is funny, like the House of the Dragon did, where the first episode, and then it was 6 months later, and then it was 3 years later. So you would be doing that but you would be going decades and not single years.
Which is fine for your elves, but that starts to wear really fast with your human characters.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, there are some timeline things that I'm still curious how they're going to, because you still have to sort them out. Like even if you've crunched the time, you still have a few things you got to sort out here.
Yeah.
Right.
So most notably, I'm like doing the math and I'm thinking, okay, so by the time we get to the third age, Elrond has a fully grown elf daughter who has been around for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
And he's supposed to be married to Galadriel's daughter.
Right.
Like, so far we haven't even seen Celeborn. So that's like the biggest thing timeline-wise that I'm like, what are they doing with this?
Yeah.
Right.
In general, the time crunch doesn't bother me, but that one I feel like.
Right. Now I will say the
that.
showrunners, when asked about it, were kind of like, "There's 5 seasons. Like we're aware," and so I'm kind of like, "Okay, they have some sort of plan here." Like, but it's it's just a matter. And my suspicion is that Galadriel is our main character in this season and might not necessarily be in the next.
I
Right.
think that's fair.
And she might not even remain the main character through this whole
Right.
season.
Mhm.
Because we do have some other very important people hanging around right now.
And
Right.
I think we set up for our main antagonist, I think, for this season being Adar, and who he is. So I think I'm not sure about Sauron yet. I'm not sold on everybody's ideas on who they think it is. There's a lot of misdirection going on.
There is. And I'm still not sure we've met. I'm still not sure we've met Sauron.
Right.
Even with the glimpse of Adar at the end of that episode, I'm still not sure. I mean, honestly, when I saw the gauntlet that he's wearing, it doesn't show us anything. It shows that gauntlet. And I was like, that's the Witch King.
Yeah.
That was,
that was the first thing that came to my mind.
The guy that was walking into the orcs.
Yes.
I think he's the Witch King.
I think that might be the Witch King, which throws my other theories into a tailspin because I thought Hal Brand was the Witch King, and
that's what Chris kept saying.
At first I thought, and now I think I'm leaning more towards Theo possibly becoming the Witch King, only because of the blade that he's carrying.
We talked about that last week.
And I let in on Kelly, and I said I think Hal Brand might be Theo's dad. Who would become?
And we keep talking about the Witch King like there aren't 8 other kings of men.
And that's the thing that I'm thinking. It's like we've literally got 9 kings that need rings. So that's a lot of human characters to come into play here.
Absolutely.
Right.
And that's a which is kind of sad because that means that most of the important human characters we see are going to become ring wraiths.
Right.
But yeah, we've got lots. We've also got 7 dwarf lords to run into. So, I think it's all going to be pretty interesting.
So we might not even see everybody in season 1. We might not even see rings in season 1.
I don't think we're going to see rings in season 1.
No, because I think honestly, I'd be a little sorry if we see rings in season 1 because I feel like first of all we have to meet our benevolent, the benevolent face of Sauron who kind of wheedles his way in there because he's the one who manipulates Celebrimbor into doing all of this stuff. Period.
Right.
Well, and that's kind of the thing. I feel like because of the time crunch, if you introduce the rings too early, like you sort of send it spiraling. Like you've moved us ahead too far too fast.
Right. And
so I really hope we don't see the rings. And I don't think I think at the end of this season, we're going to find out. I think we're going to have an idea of who Sauron is if we don't just meet him directly by the end of this.
Right.
But, or we'll at least meet Anatar. We're going to meet somebody that we're sure who he is by the end of this season.
Right. I don't think it's Adar. I really think.
No, I think he's somebody else.
Yeah, some sort of like a dark elf, a fallen elf, possibly.
And
he does look very elvish.
He does look very elvish. Although he looks like the Third Age elves we've seen. He doesn't look like the elves that we've seen so far in this show. But he looks very much like our elves that we see in the Lord of the Rings movies.
No, we should be finding out a little more about him in about an hour. So,
right.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited.
Yeah, he came walking on screen. It was like, of course it's over.
Right.
Yeah.
So, Dragon Buddy, I'll let you start on this. Like moving into episode 3, like just that episode by itself. How'd you feel about it?
I liked it. We got into Numenor, and I had a feeling that whole timeline was going to be crunched right down to walking into the doom of the island. So we're right there. You can feel the tension when Galadriel comes in, and nobody likes her. You feel that jealousy, that envy. really lead you to that point in the show, but that's where they're coming from. So, I did like that. I liked a little bit of humor that came from Hal Brand, being the boisterous one, and it just seemed like this episode was a lot more fingers pointed at him, being Sauron, or being some sort of well, obviously there's more going on than what he leads to believe, or everybody else leads to believe. But I think he's there's a lot of fingers pointed at him with kind of controlling himself, especially during the fight where they followed him. It was almost like, you don't want to see me when I'm angry, kind of attitude that he had. So
yeah, I actually had the same thought. As soon as he turned around, I was like, we're getting ready to watch him totally Hulk out here.
Right.
So, and I really, all the original promo materials, like new characters. And I was like,
right.
Because I just got to be that way.
Yeah.
But I'm really finding Hal Brand to be a great character.
He's a bit endearing. He's a bit endearing.
He's clearly a little bit of a rogue, but he's doing the right thing often enough that you don't hate him.
Right.
He's
very charismatic.
He works well. He works well alongside Galadriel.
He does. I mean, she's never at her best, never just exudes personality.
Right.
Yeah.
She's the brooding elf.
Yeah.
She's the Jon Snow elf.
Yeah.
I kind of like her.
No, I'm really liking. Really liking pretty much all the characters. Now, I will say that the one thing that got me in this episode, I didn't mind the Harfoots, the hobbits in the first couple episodes. In this one, I kept just going, please, I want to go back to Numenor.
Don't care. Nobody cares about who walks alone.
Right.
Well, there were a couple moments that were a little too silly with the hobbits in this one. I loved if they had just had them doing kind of the walk through. Obviously, they're having a festival. They're getting ready to move, and I love all of that. But it's when they're walking through, doing the little chant, nobody walks. And it goes on for 30 seconds too long.
And then they say goodbye to everybody, and they're like, well, he'll be missed. He was an idiot, but
and then they start singing Green Day in my head, walk alone. I'm walking alone. You guys are annoying me.
So but in this episode, I just kind of kept going I don't hate this, but the stuff in Numenor was way more interesting. And so I sort of felt I sort of felt irritated that they were pulling me away from the what I thought was the meat of the episode to see this other thing, which I understand. They're introducing important concepts there. They're introducing the concept. I think by the end of this, we see the Hobbit settle in what will be the Shire eventually.
I said that after the last episode we're going to see the Shire, I think, or at least the beginnings of.
Yeah, because we're digging into this idea of why the Wandering Years suck.
Right. Right.
They're bad. These are people that can barely defend themselves.
Yeah.
Landslides, wolves.
And so they've got to abandon this area before winter because the snow that they can't deal with. We saw in the movies what snow is like for hobbits, but it's also when the hunters come, the men come to hunt, and it's when the wolves come, and it's this time they have to leave, and so we're kind of getting this little taste of the Wandering Years,
right?
And why the Shire is very important, and why once they're there, most hobbits develop a desire to never leave.
Right.
Yes. There was something that I picked up on when they were, saying we will wait for you. Poppy's it seemed like her entire family all died in a landslide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's rough.
Yeah, and when we see them traveling at the end of the episode, she's alone.
Yeah.
She's alone and she's pulling her own cart, and
Mhm.
she waits for oh, what was her name again? Nori?
Nori.
Nori.
Nori. Yeah, Sushi, Nori. That's how I remembered it.
Hey, you remember the name.
I remembered the name. I don't really care for the leader, but there's something about him. The little leader dude.
He knows a
Um,
lot. He knows
He knows a lot.
a lot.
And he knows something or suspects something with the guy who fell from the stars, because
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
didn't excommunicate anybody, when they were
Right.
supposed to kick everybody out of the caravan.
Right. And I think that's why they have him drop a little nugget of knowledge
Mhm.
there that you kind of go, well, why does a hobbit know about that? But
Yeah.
it's also like you have to realize that this is something that's the mythologies of these people.
Yeah.
And they do have
People
dealings
turning
with the
into
dwarves
stars.
at times.
Yeah.
Where he says, I've never heard about a man falling from the stars, but I heard
Yeah.
about one that became one.
Yeah.
Right.
That's Elendil. Yeah, that's the whole.
Yeah.
We've already mentioned the land of the star, and so I like that
Already
they've
met his son.
right.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
I like that we've kind of hearkened back to that character because
Yeah.
he's really, really important in the mythology of this world
Mhm.
a couple of times now, and I think that knowing of a man who became a star and now talking about one that fell from a star, like
Yeah.
that would be enough. Especially for a more primitive society to say, well, maybe this is someone of importance.
It's
And
got to
with-
be Gandalf.
Yeah.
I hope it's Gandalf. It's got to be Gandalf.
I
There's
mean,
a-
I think it is. I think it's got to be Gandalf because it doesn't make sense for anybody else
To
Yeah.
have that
to have that
relationship
kind of
with the hobbits.
relationship with the Hobbit.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's the key point there, that they're
Mhm.
making a point to have him friend,
Yeah.
Yeah.
that point right there to turn it to, I mean, if it was one of the blue wizards, there'd be two of them. They wouldn't have showed up just one at a time.
Yeah.
I
And
like
we
that.
could still meet the blue wizards. At
Yeah,
some
it's
point.
possible.
Yeah.
He could be something completely different, but that really doesn't make sense in the
Also,
scheme
the
of
way
things.
they're dressing him, like in that gray robe he's wearing, I feel like is
looked-
intentional.
Yeah. He
Right.
looked
It's-
the part of Gandalf.
Right. And you kind of go, well, that's just too on the nose for the mystery here. And
Yeah.
maybe it is,
Right.
but it's not the only mystery we have. It's not like that. It's
Well,
not like it all has to be a big mystery. We have
Mhm.
other
Right.
kind of places where we can have twists and turns.
Right.
And
Of
this one
course.
could still wind up being somebody else, but I think that everything that they've done so far definitely points towards Gandalf.
Well, and
Yeah.
I know a lot of people have brought up, most of the chronologies put the wizards showing up at the beginning of the Third Age.
Yeah, but not this one.
But yeah, there are
Mhm.
references in he's got like alternate timelines basically
Mhm.
Right.
that have the wizard showing up basically but that things were actually worse at this point, so there are different timelines that have the wizard showing up during the Second Age around the time the rings were forged. So I think that's what they're going with.
Right. Well, and then this is a newer book.
Mhm.
That
I don't think Chris has that one.
the
No.
nature of Middle Earth. This one just came out, and it's not a pick it up and read it book. It's a reference book,
Right.
and it references the possibility of them coming maybe even as early as the First Age.
So he kind of apparently thought a lot about, and this is a deep cut, if the Silmarillion is not your jam, but he talks a lot about Melian and the Ishtari all having kind of been. So Melian is basically just quick version. She's a divine being who is in Middle Earth during the First Age,
Mhm.
and because one of the great elven lords falls in love with her, marries her, they have a child, and the child is one of the more important figures during the first age of Middle Earth. But he apparently had a lot kind of in his mind about the wizards in Melian, because they're all the same order of being. They're all Maya,
Right.
all kind of being collectively guardians. I think Glorfindel, he kind of threw Glorfindel in there at some point as maybe one of these potential higher orders of beings that were sent as helpers, basically, by the beings that
he does
the gods.
die in battle and
comes back. Yeah, is given another human or given another physical form to come back in the second age.
Right. So, it doesn't bother me that they're kind of going that direction, because, like, in spite of the fact that there are definitely timelines that are like, Ishtari show up, 1000, the third age. There are other. I mean, the thing is, everything, like I said, everything that's not Lord of the Rings is conjecture on the part of the editors.
Right.
So if we're going with a different timeline, I kind of like the idea of there being, as the line that they pulled out in the Force Awakens trailer, right? As the darkness rises, then the light rises to come against it, basically.
Right.
And I feel like that's kind of what we see going on, is the darkness is rising. And so I'm really...
Well, it's this moment where you do have in the Peoples of Middle Earth, really talk about it, around the time the Rings reports. That's the time evil, kind of reappears, reemerges in Middle Earth. And so it makes sense that that's when the Valar, the gods of this world, would send the helpers.
Right.
So,
at the beginning, because they're sent as, the way that they're sent is that they've lost most of who they think they are, who they know they are. So, it's going to take some time for them to really put in roots to help. So, tweaking that part of the timeline, not a problem for me. And if you go into Tolkien's, some of his essays and stuff, he's played on words with hobbits. He's played on words with the wizards that it could have been sooner, maybe, it's another story.
I think that's always the interesting thing about listening to him talk or reading his responses, his answers, his letters where he was responding to questions, was he talks about this world like it's real and this history is real.
Right.
And we weren't there to see it. So he talks about it in this, like, somebody will ask a question and he says, well, I kind of imagine that, this character would have done this based on what we know about him. Or
he sounds like a theologian when somebody says, who are the sons of God and the daughters of men in Genesis? And some people believe that they're divine beings. Some people believe they're, this type of,
and he talks about it like it's a mythology.
Yeah, he sounds like a theologian putting forth the different plausible answers.
Yeah.
For his made up world.
Right.
So just in the premise, the way they're doing it, I'm still like the time crunch is taking some getting used to, has some potential problems that could emerge down the road if they choose to ignore it. But I know that they're deep enough into the lore, specifically the guy that plays Celebrimbor and the guy that plays Elrond were having debates about Tolkien on set.
Took the whole mythology.
They all sat around with their book, with the Silmarillion, and had arguments about
their take.
So, yes.
Yep.
So they're not just ignoring it. They're aware of these things that need to happen. And so, right now, I don't have any reason to think they won't follow through on that.
Right. And not having the rights to the Silmarillion stuff, they have to shape their story a little differently. So they can't turn around and say, well, we don't have the rights to it, but I read it. So we can, you're going to, they can get it yanked. So they do have to weave, and there's plenty of room to be able to weave in and out of there. But the time crunch is, in this episode was a good one because I'm going through, I think that name doesn't sound familiar. Doesn't sound. I knew it. It's not even in the damn book, But it's that fun part of trying to put this together to where I know where it's going, but you've tweaked it in a way to where it's got me interested to where I can't quite make that next connection to where I know what's happening. I know what's going to happen. We all do. We've seen the movies, but it makes it fun.
I don't know why this is covering up. So if I don't put your comment on screen tonight, it's because I can't figure out why it's covering up Kelly.
I don't mind. Go right ahead.
So what do you guys think about the revelation of the mark as a map? And I love the term. I've heard it today, before door. That I liked how they put it that way. But it was I thought it was a great revelation to where this is what's going on.
Yeah, no, I thought that was great, and I wasn't that surprised because one of the biggest Tolkien channels out there, Nerd of the Rings.
Oh yes,
if you're just looking to spend time learning about Middle Earth, there's not a better place to go.
Oh, that's awesome, pod.
Where you can where he just breaks down characters and places and languages and everything, and does a spectacular job of it.
Oh, I could get lost in that world.
He actually guessed that, like, as soon as we saw that symbol before the show came out.
Right.
Like, back when we first saw that symbol, he was like, "My guess is that's a map of Mordor."
Right. Yeah.
I suspected it, but I didn't know for sure until DB was like, "Hey, Kel, look at this map." And I'm like, "Oh, it is Mordor." I mean, it only makes sense because, like, the orcs are making so many tunnels there and they're really buckling down. So it makes total sense to me. I had a question for all of you guys.
Okay.
Since, you're 80s and 90s kids, and since, you're so into the lore of Tolkien. Now, I remember growing up that a lot of movies would say, based on the book written by so-and-so. So, in the 80s and 90s, when you see that, it's not going to be word for word because it's based on
a true story.
Yes. And they're going to throw stuff in there to jazz it up.
Right.
They don't really do that now, but had the Rings of Power written that based on the writings of J.R.R. Tolkien. Yes.
Right.
That was in the trailer.
In the trailers.
In the trailer.
Then why is everybody having a conniption? It doesn't say the Silmarillion. I mean, it's based on. So.
Yep.
Yeah, when you said you were going to ask about that tonight, I was like, I saw that somewhere. And so I found it.
So it does say that. So, like, what is everybody not understanding?
Honestly, the truth of it is that anybody, I don't know what people thought was going to happen when they said we're making a second age story.
Right.
You basically only have an outline.
Yeah.
You don't have enough characters to flesh out a story. You've only got the highlights.
Right.
Yeah.
And so there was no way to do that. Everybody's upset about created characters. Now, I would be upset if there were invented characters that sort of supplanted the Tolkien's characters.
Right.
But I don't think you can tell this story. I don't think you can flesh this world out enough for a TV series without creating characters. And so,
and honestly,
I think that they didn't spend a lot of time saying it's just based on the books, because I think they thought that most people that understood the extra literature, like the Silmarillion and the histories of Middle Earth, understood that there's not actually a story there.
Right.
Well, and the other thing is, honestly, I don't think that they're as much creating original characters as they're giving names to.
We don't know who they are.
We don't know who they are. I think most of these characters are not original characters. I think they're just giving backstories to.
Well, that's the thing. They're the way they're using these, show characters are
Mhm.
great plot devices to explain to you, why we're feeling this way or why this was going on. And I don't think they're using them in a a way to where you're just overloaded with all of this new content. Like
Right.
we made an army full of women that are coming to save the day here. You're not changing the story over any of this.
Right.
So it's it's I don't know, and it's funny because a lot of the critics that I'm hearing out there is the boredom from this, but they're also the same people that are the truest that that'll bring up the lore of this. I challenge you to read the Silmarillion for 3 days straight and tell me that you can't put it. You have to put it down at some point and go, wow, I just read the first 10 pages of the dictionary.
Read.
I read the Silmarillion a chapter at a time, and
Yeah,
I read a chapter and then I put it back on the shelf.
Yeah.
Yep. And then even then I go back and forth, and it's a glossary. It's not it's a glossary and a timeline. It's not a story.
Right.
So
There's
like
a collection of
Old Testament.
Yeah, it's a collection of simplified stories.
Mm-hmm.
It's the man's notes.
Yeah,
is what it is. I mean, now some of those Christopher Tolkien and they brilliantly finished a couple of those. Children of Hurin.
That one's sad.
It is, but it's such a good book.
It's good story.
But yeah, so Amanda asked, who is everyone's favorite character? And I'm gonna go with favorite character in this show so far. Which is probably what she was asking, but I want to clarify.
Right.
So that I don't say Glorfindel.
We're going to get to meet Glorfindel, right? Eventually,
we've
got to meet.
I would think we would have to. I don't know. I think meeting Elendil this last episode was really big, because that's part of that whole time crunch thing that's going on right now with how we're going back and forth. But seeing him, Isildur, he should be like not even a fetus yet, but okay. For time's sake, we crunch those things, and I'm fine with that. So seeing him was a big thing to where I'm like, ooh, now I'm really hooked because I know what happens with him. He's a main character that leads us, to Middle Earth. He's a main character that leads us to, our favorites from the Lord of the Rings with the line of Aragorn. And so I right now he's probably he moved to the top of my list.
I was really, really excited. Like as soon as I saw him, I was like, we finally got because we saw him for all of 3 seconds.
Yeah.
In the Fellowship of the Ring, it's like we see, the son of the king and the sword breaks and then he dies. And it's
right.
And thus ends one of the greatest characters in Tolkien lore.
Right.
So at this point, I would say he is up there for me as well. I'm really liking Galadriel. I know that people are real mixed on Galadriel, but I'm loving what they're doing with the character.
Okay, but here's my thing. People who really hate what they're doing, Galadriel, did they read the Silmarillion?
No.
Because, she is not like chill elf lady in the Silmarillion. She is like, whenever Fëanor is like, hey, we're going to go to Middle Earth and we're going to get us a kingdom. We're going to do this. And she's like, yep, I want a kingdom.
Right.
Literally. She
wants a kingdom right until she decides to go back to... she wants to rule right until she decides to reject the ring,
right,
and go back to Valinor.
Yeah,
right.
So she and the Noldor in the first and the second ages, man, they are a mess. They are violent.
Yeah,
they are vengeful. They are not kind of the image that everybody seems to expect from the elves in Middle Earth. They're not good people on the whole.
No, they're mercenaries.
They are, and
in a lot of ways.
And I feel
I mean, that's the thing is we've at this point, and I really hope they're going to go back and discuss the kinslayings, because we've kind of missed the most violent things that the elves did. There are at least 3 kinslayings.
Yeah.
Just the Noldor.
Yeah.
Are involved in 3 sets of kins. Yeah.
Right.
So it doesn't bother me that she's this very different character than the woman. And not to mention, like, the Galadriel that we come across is like this close to taking the ring and being the new evil power in the world.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like, she's not a safe,
Right.
character. And so I'm enjoying that we get to see her do something besides, be monotone and pretty.
Yeah.
Which is great. Like, I think she's badass in Lord of the Rings, but I've really enjoyed her character here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She really is badass. She's like total hungry bitch.
That's why it's kind of funny reading, all of Tolkien's works about these characters when people are the moniker, the Galadriel kind of thing, where it's like you don't know these stories. Like she's more badass than what we're seeing on film.
No, I mean, and Tolkien said more than once that by the time of the Fellowship, that she is the most powerful elf.
Yeah.
She may be the most powerful being in Middle Earth.
Right.
Well, she comes off as very power hungry in the series.
Yeah, and she's supposed to.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because you see, so in Lord of the Rings we meet Elrond, we meet his daughter. He's also got twin sons. Their mother was kidnapped by orcs and tormented.
Oh.
And so her sons spend the rest of their lives like on an orc hunt.
Yeah.
And that's what they do. They spend the rest of their lives just trying to kill anything that they think could be remotely related to something that destroyed their mother.
Yeah.
And those are her grandsons. And so I feel like we kind of have a lot of that sort of energy going in her at this point with the, because, so people so her brother's an elf, like he's not technically dead, right? He's alive in the halls of Mandos in the valley, whatever.
Right.
But they tortured him. Like he died painfully. And so even if he is in the undying land somewhere in some form and his spirit is still around, like that doesn't matter. Like, she loved him and they destroyed him and they're going to pay.
Oh yeah.
So, and I know a lot of people were really upset, when she's going through the snow, right? And the elf falls down and they're going to Galadriel, and she's like, just keeps going.
Yeah.
But I knew the thing that I noticed when she turned around and actually saw there's a person down, she engaged with it.
Right. Well, in the trailer, that was one of the things they were attacking the characterization over was the trailer where she's like, no, we keep moving and it cuts away. And that's not what happens. It's when someone actually calls her name, it stops her for a minute. And it's just a mechanism of showing how driven she is in pursuing this evil.
Who knew that the hobbits would be the one leaving people behind? Stay on the trail.
Yeah, don't get off the trail with those hobbits.
You'd be walking alone.
Right.
Spite of all their chanting to the contrary.
Nobody walks alone.
Which they actually didn't do what I thought they were going to do with there, though. I thought that what was going to happen was they were going to get left behind.
Yeah.
And that it was going to be him as he's able to get more and more control over what's going on and who he is, and that it would be him that ensured that they survived. Were able to survive in this place where usually they wouldn't be able to.
Yeah.
And so I thought that's where they were going to go. I'm not upset that they didn't do that, but I really thought that's where it was headed, that they were in fact going to get left behind.
Right.
But that they would survive.
Yeah.
Right.
Because apparently that doesn't happen.
No.
They're like rabbits. They don't hold up well to the elements.
Amanda brings up Doran in the chat, and I really enjoyed him.
Doran would probably be like meeting Elendil is just so cool at this point as a Tolkien fan. It's just he's he's such an important character that I think that's why he's kind of like right at the top for me right now.
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed everything I've seen on the dwarves so far.
Oh yes.
And both Doran and Disa are phenomenal.
Yeah.
Like I loved the way you buy them as an old married couple.
Yes.
Definitely.
I love them. I love them. I like a little bit of humor in my drama. You know, I'm just that kind of girl, but
yeah.
Oh,
But I love that, like, he's gruff and he's trying to be all gruff and angry, and she just like runs up and hugs. Get the impression she's never actually even met Elrond, and runs up and hugs him. And
you're staying for dinner.
Right.
Yes, he is.
And it's like I absolutely like buy that relationship. And
yes.
But I'm loving. I love the dwarf stuff. I hope we see a whole lot more.
I want to know what's in that chest. What's in the chest?
Right.
Gotta be Mithril.
What's in the box, man?
What's in the?
I mean, now there are a lot of jewels.
There are a lot of jewels that were created by the elves.
I mean, there are a lot of jewels that were created by Fëanor before he created the Silmarils. So
right.
I would be a little upset.
Necklace that eventually gets a Silmaril set in it.
Who?
I don't remember what the necklace is called. There's a really famous necklace with like all the jewels in it that the dwarves make, and it's a whole thing.
Oh, right.
So I would be a little upset at this point if it turned out to be a Silmaril.
Yeah.
So at this point, the Silmaril should all be gone.
Yeah, that's why I don't really want to see a Silmaril.
Yeah.
Well, not totally gone, because aren't the 3 elven rings forged from
shards of
the Silmarils or something? So
I don't remember.
So I'm not sure, but I'm just leaning towards the dwarves have just discovered Mithril.
Yeah, I think that's a good call.
And there's stuff that we do know that's coming. Where you've got Celebrimbor, and now we're starting to get a little cozy with the dwarves. He's going to create the gate that we'll see later on.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really excited to see some like dwarf elf camaraderie for like the 1 minute that it exists in Middle Earth.
Right. A little bit of time.
Yeah. So I want to see, like, right now they've kind of got Elrond being the friend of Durin, but like I want to see this relationship between Celebrimbor and the dwarves, because
not to mention, man, I want to really see more of Elrond.
Well, but it's also dwarves don't just respect any smith.
No.
So that's the thing. I want to see the respect for Celebrimbor, and
right.
So maybe that's why whatever's in the box maybe is something that he created.
Right.
Because he created a lot of things prior to the rings as well.
Oh yeah.
So it could be something he created, but based on some scenes in the trailer, I'm really leaning towards they've just discovered Mithril.
Okay. Right. Makes sense.
So why though is Durin's father concerned that he's keeping it that Elrond didn't find out the secret?
So based on what Durin III, the older Durin, says, is that, do you think it's a coincidence that he showed up just now? Like, they've got a secret. Mm-hmm. I think it's the Mithril.
Right.
And there is like, so he's skeptical and thinks that they found out about the Mithril, and so they've suddenly shown up. Mm-hmm. I think that's where that's going.
Could be. Yeah.
Overall, what did y'all think about our introduction to Numenor, though? I know for Kelly, like that, I don't even know how much you knew about Numenor prior to seeing it in this series.
Absolutely nothing. And then I saw it. And when you first see like the faces and the cliffs, and the sculptures, and it was just like absolutely blew me away. It's so beautiful.
I'm really hoping that at some point Weta is able to do some of those statues for purchase.
I buy it. I buy it as the great lost culture that inspired Gondor.
Yeah.
Like, like Gondor is a shadow of Numenor.
And we're not even seeing Numenor at its height.
Yeah.
Mhm.
We're seeing Numenor ready to fall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you still
That's
see.
what Chris is telling me.
Yes,
Yeah.
we've got that.
Yeah, I've got that one too.
Yes, I pointed that
Unfortunately-
out like a year ago to Andrew. I'm like, we have those, and,
Yep.
and the Gollum. We have Gollum, and the
Gollum is
bookends.
Gollum's hanging out right here.
Yeah.
You
Right.
have
I've
the
got
bookends
all.
on your shelf. I've seen them.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the tower broke off of ours.
Oh, one of the hands broke off of ours.
I had broke off one of the Argonath statues, but it got glued back on. But
Yeah.
the tower from Gondor is just or from Minas
Minas
Tirith
Tirith,
is
yeah.
just missing.
Yeah.
I could probably make another one. I just haven't.
So let's talk real quick because a character like we haven't talked about that is actually way higher on my list of likes than I expected, and that's Hal Brand.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I love that Hal Brand is sort of trying to play the voice of reason. He's he's one of those guys, like, I don't know what to expect from him. He may or may not end up becoming a villain, but he's very silver-tongued. And so he's kind of a manipulator. And I love that when they first show up and he's, they first brought before the Queen Regent, and he's like, Galadriel's gonna like stand there all fierce, and he's like, how about we stay here for a few days while you kind of think this over?
Yeah, he said that, and I looked at Dragon Buddy, and I'm like, oh, here he comes. He's gonna mansplain it to everybody now, because there's two chicks fighting. I just love him. There's something about him. There's something
one of those
about him.
things. He's really charismatic. I really like what they've done with him so far. The fight scene was great.
Yes.
Elijah came in while we were watching it, and so he sits down and he puts that arm against the door frame, and he goes.
It made me cringe a little bit too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. This is our 8-year-old. Like, he walks in and sees that, and he like looks at me like,
"What are you?"
Like, I'm out of here.
That just happened.
I'm freaking out, and our 18-year-old, who is a huge Tolkien fan, she's just like looking at me like, "Really, Mom?" I'm like, I can't look at that.
But I like what they're doing with him. I'm a little scared to get too attached to the character, and I think that's going to be the twist here. Is like, I don't know what side he's going to come down on at the end of this.
He's that Aragorn character that we're getting with the show, but like almost all roads lead back to him becoming either a ring wraith or failing in doing so.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure what winds up happening to him, and I'm also leery of him, not just because he's sort of silver-tongued, but also he just can't wait to get in there and forge something.
I said that to Kelly too.
I said that to you though. Like,
the first thing he wanted to get in on their forge. That's not a good sign.
Right.
Really, because like as an outsider watching this, for basically the first time, I'm like, he knows how to fight. He knows how to talk to royalty. He knows how to work the forge. Like, maybe, like, he's got to be more important than just some,
Right. It's whose side is he playing on?
Right.
Is he the head of the head? Is he the big bad, or is he just knows a lot of things? We're still at that point where I'm not sold that he's not Sauron at this point.
Yeah, it's really the forge thing that really kind of makes me go, oh, that's not good. That he's that dead set on on forging something.
But he's just gonna steal somebody's clasp and like it's gonna get him as a coin to get in to start banging on things.
Well, he's got me fooled because I'm like, you know, he could be a leader here. So he's totally got me fooled. Like, I don't know the backstory of him or anything like you guys do, but he's got me fooled.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like, we don't.
I mean, here's
At
the
this
thing about
point,
He's
he's
a
a
TV
king of the Southlanders. He's a totally original character here.
Yeah,
He
yeah. This
is.
is
Like,
Amazon.
we have some ideas
named.
of what his people did.
Right.
We don't necessarily know what comes of all of them. But we know what his ancestors did. We know he's the ruler of people that stood with Morgoth.
Mhm.
Yep.
I
And
feel
so
like
it's-
Anatar, though, doesn't show up and have to climb any kind of ladders. He doesn't show up as a despised.
he
He doesn't
think,
show up at the bottom of the ladder.
yeah, I don't
He
think
shows
that.
up and
Well, even he shows up, and even the elves are impressed.
yes,
Right.
he shows
Right.
up, and I don't think he ever takes the climb up from the bottom. I think he descends with some kind of like benevolent gifts. He wants to be. He in fact is known as the bringer of gifts.
Yeah.
Anatar, the bringer of gifts.
Yep. That's how he tricks them. He basically says the Valar have sent him to
Right.
teach you how to make this jewelry and this craft to finally turn Middle Earth into what you're looking to Valinor for, and an undying land where things don't decay, things don't disappear.
Yeah.
So that's my issue with Hal Brand as Sauron, as I just don't think. I think he has all the right charisma, but I don't think he comes in riding roughshod over everybody nearly enough. I don't think. I think he's got way too much humility going.
Right. It's just those certain things that come out in there where I've been looking for my peace for longer than that need to get into the forge. It's those things that are, probably misdirection, but it's enough to me go, well, I can't count them out.
Yeah,
Right.
and that's true.
Well, we also know, like, we've seen the Southlands. They're still there. The Orcs haven't been there. They just showed up.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and people there talk about one day our true king will return, which at this point I have to assume they're talking about him.
Right.
And it's like, why is he really here? Like, his
Mm-hmm.
story about why he's here at all doesn't hold up.
No.
And I'm not worried about that being a continuity thing, because I think he's just fork tongued at this point.
Right.
But, like, why is he on this ship in the first place? Where were they going? Were they trying to get to Valinor? Were they trying to get to Numenor? Why are they even there?
Right.
They've got no reason to be on that boat in the first place.
But I'm really interested to see where the Numenor. I mean, we know where the Numenor stuff's going, but like, we've got people like Muriel. We still don't know. There's stories that have her coming down on both sides.
Right.
Of this, and I'm at this point they're kind of. They're leaving us in suspense as to which side she'll come down on, because they know there's two stories, and so they're gonna let it linger for a minute.
So did anybody else catch whenever they were saying Imrahil's in big trouble? This is the same name as the Prince of Dal Amroth, and in the that we see in the.
Oh, this is the kid that cuts the wrong road.
Yeah, the kid that cuts the wrong road.
All right.
And I was like, wait a minute. This name is familiar, so I had to go look it up. I was like, yeah. So I'm wondering if it's going to be an ancestor, or if they just pulled a name there, like, this is a Tolkien name. This sounds Numenorian.
Yeah, they might have, but I don't. It's kind of like it could have just been in there for is an Easter egg. But yeah, I mean, he's he could be the ancestor of because those are Gondorians. So
yeah. That was the other theory that I heard this morning. Trying to avoid spoilers is so hard for these high fantasy shows because they're so in right now. So is he? That's where I think I got the whole is Theo possibly his son, and he is the heir to Gond, or to be that king, and Theo's his son who becomes the Witch King. There's just a lot going on, and I like how the tweaks that people complain about are also what's keeping us who know the lore to be, we're still locked into it because
Right. I don't want to like be like, well, this is what's happening next, even though I've never seen it.
Yeah.
I'm fine with some surprises.
Yeah.
And I'm enjoying the show so far. So real quick, because apparently we're really enjoying talking about this. We're already an hour and 5
Holy
minutes.
moly. That went fast.
So before we wrap up, there's one scene or one arc in this that we haven't even like touched. Is with the elves in this, where they've all been captured. We've got them in this labor camp.
Yeah.
How are y'all feeling about this group of elves? Specifically, we've got kind of another created character here in
Arendir.
Arendir,
yeah.
So how are y'all feeling about those characters and what takes place there as they all try to escape?
I thought it was I think I don't know how to put that. Obviously they're story characters. They're only really there to try to explain to us what's going on, I think. They might have something bigger. I have a feeling Arondir's not going to end up doing so hot in the end. Something's going to happen with Adar. I love the fact that when you finally pan back up and realize at the tree and they look around that this is how Mordor became
there is no tree line.
There is no tree line. They're chopping everything
green
down.
Country and it's desolate.
This is going to lead to a giant tower with the all-seeing eye and Mount Doom in the background.
And he apologized to the tree.
Yeah. And I know a lot of people really didn't like that, but again,
the elves are one with nature.
It's like one of the most Tolkien things we've seen yet. Is the elf apologizing to the tree before he cuts it down.
It's true.
I thought the elves were one with nature, though. I kind of
Yeah. Like, because somebody was talking about Tolkien and Lewis, and like there's kind of like this long running joke about Tolkien and Lewis and the endless conversations about the meanings of the word tree and all the things involved.
Right.
So yeah, especially they're Sylvan elves. They're not the Noldoran elves who are on a quest for kingdoms. They're interested in just living their little life, in their little section of the world and being one with nature. And so yeah, like cutting down the tree is, a lot of people were like, I mean, who's going to die for a tree? Like a Sylvan elf.
Yeah.
But that's the thing that shows the darkness of that land. It's being stripped by, slave labor by elves, those that would respect that nature.
Exactly. And we see like lots of references in the Silmarillion to Sauron using elves and men as forced labor. But we've never actually. So like, I feel like this is a really interesting picture that we're seeing something that like is a very real thing in Middle Earth.
Yeah.
It's just the first time we're actually seeing it.
Right.
It's showing how gruesome and how brutal the orcs really are.
I'm really glad. I'm actually like the orcs are some of my favorite thing about the show. Doing a fantastic job. They look incredible. But I'm also glad that
we're much. The wolf was kind of like
the warg.
Wow.
The warg looked like a
real hairy house and shit right there.
It did. It looked a little stop motion-y, didn't it?
Yeah. I think it was the eyes. The eyes kind of threw me.
It looked like a really angry chihuahua.
Yeah. But like wargs have pug faces. I didn't really think
it's like this is like they just showed us why God made chihuahuas small.
Yeah,
because if they were big, that's what they would be.
That one or something. With all the really awesome special effects they've been having, and then they have that thing coming out. It's like,
I was a big fan of the
dollar store.
I was a big fan of the games. Still am. I still play them. Shadow of Mordor and Shadow of War, and getting that whole feeling of the orcs, where at any point in time, there's a power struggle. Like, you know, this one's in charge, but this one's in charge. Well, you're going to be in the sun. Oh, no, you're going to be in the sun. And that game played off of that, where you always had these guys that are vying for position. And you kind of get that feeling with all of the captors that are there arguing with each other until one from way in the back comes forward with a great idea to, you know, to slit somebody's throat. So I did like that aspect of it.
Yeah. So I like the thing with the I'm just reading Nicole's comment.
Based on Andrew's grandmother's chihuahuas, who are the spawn of Satan.
But yeah, I mean, I thought the warg could have looked a little better, but I'm not like it's not enough to ruin.
I mean, it wasn't terrible, you know. I was just like,
honestly, on the rewatch, it was a little less jarring.
Yeah.
On the first time I saw it, I was like, "What the heck did they do? Like, did they forget to finish this?
It's got the googly eyes. What the hell's going on?"
It's like that sand monster in Book of Boba Fett, you know. Like
we had just, and I thought googly eyes because we had just come back from Dragon Con, and if you're not familiar with Dragon Con, there are what are called the cults of Dragon Con.
Right.
Well, one of the cults of Dragon Con, the way it started was people putting googly eyes on things.
Oh,
whoa!
And so when you walk around Dragon Con, there'll be cardboard cutouts, statues, paintings, googly eyes on everything.
Everything.
Nice.
And so, yeah, we just came back from Dragon Con, so it was like, oh, the googly eyes are back. But
yep.
Yeah, the warg was a little, but other than that, I really liked the scene. I loved watching the elves fight because we kind of got a look at with fighting with the chains.
Yeah.
As they're imprisoned. I'm liking what they're doing. I think that there are bad things in store for Arondir.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to get better for him.
I hope he gets out, but
I do too. But I'm really curious if they're going to use him. Yeah, I'm a little concerned for him that he's our point of view for the viciousness of.
That's what I'm thinking, is that you're going to see through him how terrible. I don't even know about Sauron, but just whoever Adar is.
Orcs and Adar.
Yeah, that you're going to find out that this is how terrible they are because of what they're going to do to him.
Yeah.
Well,
but then why would they have like they portray this forbidden love story like eventually him and Human Chicky are going to get together like.
Yeah, see, I think
they're gonna like get together, right?
They're not gonna.
Yeah, I don't think that's gonna happen. I think that they were setting it up to, kind of like show that, and I think they almost may have done it so that they could have the conversation,
right,
in world about like how tragic it's been when there have been other pairings of elves and men, because the two other times are very tragic.
Right.
And even the third pairing is less tragic than the first two, but it still ends in a lot of death.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where we left off with the second episode was that, Chicky cut off the head of an orc and brings it to her bar and like slams it on the bar and, was gathering up the troops. So I was just
and I am curious to see where she ended up because it doesn't look like she was captured.
Yeah.
Right.
No.
Right.
We see a lot of references. So I'm reading the Silmarillion again.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got all the references right now.
Nice.
Lots of references to Morgoth, who is like the original, right, big bad in Middle Earth.
Yeah.
Capturing specifically elves, and then after basically brainwashing them and sending them back to the point that people who really do escape are not welcome because everybody assumes they're a spy.
Right.
And so I would like Arondir has kind of been an endearing little person 3 episodes in. I kind of hate to see that happen to him, but I think that's a very likely end scenario for him.
Very real.
Right.
But as far as the orcs, they're doing a lot with them wanting to be in the shade, which is which is
Yes.
accurate. We didn't really do that in the movies so much, but we
Yeah, not
did.
so much.
Well, by that point, Sauron has so much power that he's projecting basically darkness in the form of clouds ahead of his armies
Right.
for them to
Right.
march in the shade.
Right.
It also tells us later why the Uruk-hai are important, though, because they don't have the weaknesses to the sun.
Right.
Right.
And so I think they're doing some really good world building with
Mm.
kind of interweaving all these ideas in here, where you kind of start to get a better view of the big picture of
Yeah.
Middle-earth.
Yeah. Before you guys wrap up, I have one question.
Okay.
The king of Numenor?
Numenor?
Yes. Now, he was exiled because of his love of the elves and the friendship he had with the elves, and he's up in the tower. And then his daughter, Queen Regent, she goes up there and she's like, the elf that we were afraid was going to come is here, or something like that. So I want to know what's going on with that. Like, first he's
Yeah.
exiled for liking elves. Why is he afraid that an elf is going to show up? And then the elf shows up, and it's happening.
My guess is that
What's
he's foreseen something,
Yeah.
and that not that the elf showing up is that he doesn't like elves, but that the elf showing up.
You're coming here is
Fulfilling
prophecy.
I think that this is the marking.
Oh.
I think that this is a mark in a vision of the future of Numenor, that he
Like the
foresaw
apocalypse is
that
about
he
to go
foresaw
down.
the end of Numenor.
Prophecy of the
Yeah.
doom. Yeah.
Yeah, Numenor is Tolkien's Atlantis.
Yes.
Right.
And so it's going to come to a bad end with them
Mhm.
being divided against each other. And so I think that the king has seen in some way or the other.
Mhm.
I mean, a lot of the Numenorians have the gift of foresight.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
And so that's the other thing. We have lots of characters who have foresight. Elrond and Gil-galad, who, by the way, like, I really feel like we need to be more invested in Gil-galad right now. He is so boring.
Right.
I think that's got to go somewhere, right?
Yeah.
I think when I
Like, we're
think that
supposed to be sad when he
Gil-galad,
dies.
well, I think that Gil-galad is going to become more interesting if they do what they should with him. And once the Rise of Sauron is revealed, he's going to take off the robes and put armor back on.
Yeah.
Because he is, at this point, is one of the most powerful beings in
Yes.
all of Middle Earth. And I
Yeah,
think
like,
we're going
I
to get
mean-
to see that.
I mean, Elrond is his herald.
Yeah.
Right.
He's
Right.
just- yeah. So yeah, so I have no idea exactly like that. I think it's some kind of portent, but that's not. That's another. They've done a good job, like Andrew was saying, of not only raising questions that we know the answers to. It's not one of those things like, well, if you read the book, then you obviously know
Yeah.
everything's going to happen. It's
Yeah.
not that kind of story.
No.
And I appreciate that because it gives us, questions.
And I love it that I haven't read the book and I'm enjoying this. I'm enjoying this a lot. I'm totally invested in this.
Yeah.
We just got to get you to start asking questions on the second watch through. Because my youngest has the remote and it's
Yeah, I swear she rolled her eyes every time I asked.
Mom, if you just wait 2 seconds, I guarantee your answer you'll get the answer and press play.
It's really hard to watch this series with you because you're like, oh, look at this.
Well, yeah, because I'm putting stuff in my head and I say stuff. And, well, what's going on? Why you wouldn't understand? Well, tell me. No, I'll say it and be like, I don't understand it. I know that's you'll get it.
Oh, look, there's the tree, and I'm like, pause it. What's so important about the tree?
Hemlock.
I think I just figured out what this comment was about, and it took me a minute. I'm going to put this in front of your face one more time.
Okay.
Oh, it's shorter. It didn't go in front of your face.
Oh, okay.
So if you are looking for Daniel, as in our other co-host, Daniel is missing in action as far as podcasting with us. So if you go message Daniel on Twitter and tell him you want to see him back on the show, because
It's true.
we'd love to see him back on the show too.
Yes. He every once in a while,
But when you
Daniel,
first-
like,
when I-
goes all gets a personal life and fails on
But when I first saw that question, I was like, I don't remember a character named Daniel, and that doesn't sound very Tolkien-esque.
Radcliffe, he was in Harry Potter.
But yes, tell Daniel you want to see him back on the show, because we would love to see Daniel back on the show too.
Yes. I bet he's got thoughts on this one.
Oh, he does. He's been texting me.
You tell him to stop texting me. Andrew used to, he'd be on the phone, he'd be like, dude, we're having the show before we have the show.
Yeah, that was one of the best pieces of advice I ever got when we started doing this, was from a radio. A guy does I think it was
This
called
Week in Geek.
This Week in Geek, which
Okay.
is a radio. It was an actual radio show, but it was basically doing what we do on the podcast.
Mhm.
And they were like, I said, what is the, if you could give me one piece of advice, what is it? And he said, don't do the show before you do the show.
Oh, right.
Meaning, don't talk about all the things you're going to talk about with the people you're going to
Yep.
talk about with on the show, because then you get to the show and you
Right,
feel like you
said
don't
it.
have anything left to say, but you haven't actually said it for the audience yet.
Right.
Mhm.
And,
Absolutely.
What's
Absolutely.
the problem
and so
though
it's
when you're
hard.
married?
It's hard when you live with the person you podcast with, but that's usually why it's beneficial to have David or Daniel or,
Right.
once upon a time, my brother, Robbie, who was the first co-host here on the show.
Right.
Didn't last very long.
No, he got a life really fast.
But overall, it sounds like everybody's enjoying the show.
I really am.
I can't wait. I mean, this was my favorite episode so far.
Yeah.
I felt like this was the one that ended, and I went immediate. Was like, I need to see what's next.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I felt like, this one grabbed me enough. It had enough going on that it didn't feel like it was as long as it was.
Right.
And then it kind of ended, and I was like, no, you can't
No,
end
yeah.
it here.
Yeah.
Anymore.
I love I love that the shows are an hour long.
Yeah.
I absolutely love that the shows are an hour long.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm a little disappointed it's only 8 episodes, because tonight's our
Mhm.
halfway point.
Yeah.
Oh.
Because
that hurts.
originally, and I'm wondering how they're going to sort it out in the end, because they originally build this as 50 episodes, 51
Yeah.
or 50 hours of.
50 hours, 5-10 episodes.
So yeah, we assumed it was going to be, now maybe we're going to get some of those extra hours back at the end
Right.
of the maybe there will be some longer episodes when they
Yeah.
get to the end of the story. Because I don't know, for all I know, they could do the whole war. I mean, I know we got to kind of see it in the at the beginning of Fellowship.
Mhm.
Like,
We got to see, like, again, what,
right, we only get to see
90
a, like,
seconds of
yeah,
it?
not much, but it
Right.
was so beautifully done. Like, do you
I mean, but
dive
this-
back in there? Or
Maybe
not?
you don't do the big shots. I mean, this is the last alliance of Men and Elves, though. Like, we need to, like, now we know Gil-galad. Like,
Yeah, I mean,
He
I think they need to
dies.
do it, because I
You know,
think
he dies
we're
in-
more invested in knowing who
Mhm.
these people are now.
Mhm.
you know,
Mhm.
like, all,
And a
you
lot
know,
of them aren't going to make it out of that war.
a lot of them
Yeah,
are not going to
most of them.
Oh.
And not to mention, though, I mean,
Well, I mean, and a
geez.
lot had to happen for Elrond to become king.
Yeah, I mean, the last alliance of Men and Elves is like still
Mhm.
hundreds of years.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
I mean, like from now. I mean, so okay, so you're gonna go. The men of Numenor are long-lived, so we're gonna say it's gonna be at least 100 years out from
Mhm.
this
Right.
point.
right.
Just based on the age they're giving us for Isildur. Oh, good. I hope you enjoy it, Nicole.
Yeah, give it a shot, Nicole. The
It's
first,
so
the first episode is a little slow,
Mhm.
and I will readily admit that the first episode could have been better paced.
Well, they have to
Right.
introduce everything.
Right.
They introduced the elves, the dwarves, not the
They
hobbits.
did a lot. They did a lot in the first episode, but it
Good.
does drag a little bit. But
Yeah.
I think by the time you get into the second episode, it starts to take off. And episode 3, I felt like it really started hitting its stride.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But so far, it feels like Middle Earth to me.
Mhm.
Like I
Yeah.
don't have any. as a
does feel like Middle Earth.
huge Tolkien fan, I have no issue saying that this feels like Middle Earth.
It does.
Right.
It does. And
the
that's
map,
why I love it.
the panning back and forth.
I love the use of the map because
Because-
Yeah,
maps
so
are
awesome.
incredibly important to Tolkien,
Mhm.
and so I love that they opted to use the maps.
Yes.
I remember being a kid reading through, and then constantly going back and forth to
Yeah.
the pages with the
Well,
map.
it was awesome to have those maps when you were
Oh,
reading because
so
he's
cool.
describing this journey, and you don't have to just try to imagine it. You can flip
You can see
the
it.
page and you can look at it, and it really helps understand the journey.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
But I think that's probably a good place to wrap up for the night.
All
But
right.
thank y'all for sticking around. I really intended to keep it under an hour, so
Well,
I know it's a lot later for y'all than it is me.
good
so I
news
just
is that the
appreciate
episode is
y'all.
dropping right now.
It is.
Yeah.
Right now.
I'm gonna go grab me some dinner and sit down
Yeah.
and watch the show
Mhm.
here. But before we wrap up, I do want to give everybody a chance to plug where they're at on the internet and what they've got going on podcast wise. And Kelly, I'll let you start.
Awesome. Well, as most of you guys know, I am the social media manager of the Sidebar Cantina. So bio.link/the Sidebar Cantina. Dave and Jason have their shows every Monday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern. So check it out. This week they're going to recap Rogue One. They're going to revisit that. They haven't covered that in a while, and we're getting all geared up for Andor. And then a brand new podcast that me and co-host Don Dillis Nooch, who you can find him on ETSW, The Escape Pod. We just started a podcast, at the end of July. Stranger Things has happened. We're brand new. We're covering Stranger Things episode by episode. We both have never seen it before. We will be coming back live on Saturday, September 24th, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm sorry, Eastern Daylight Time. And we'll be doing the season 1 finale. So
that was a good
haven't
one.
watched it yet. So excited.
Yeah, it's a good one. For sure.
It is. Really is.
All right, and Dragon Buddy, and y'all are back.
Yes, we are
Finally.
back. Last night was our first episode back. We took that summer hiatus, the Escape Pod. It was nice. We kind of did an ATSW family thing. The Escape Pod spawned from what used to be All Things Star Wars podcast and is now the Sidebar Cantina. So we kind of went back to our roots, had Dave and Jason on, had a little hangout stream, and eased back into it. A lot of changes over the last several weeks. So we're happy to be back. We have no idea what we're doing next week just yet. But that's all part of the fun. But yeah, Wednesday, 7:05 on YouTube. We'll be doing it live.
Awesome. All right, Marisha, where can people find you?
Just pitch. Why don't you just?
You don't even remember.
I don't. I already did that once tonight.
Padawans.
He's like, I already did that tonight. I'm not doing it again. All right, you can find me running the Twitter account for this show at sci_fictionary. You can drop us a line at the sciencefictionary@gmail.com. Please, if you haven't checked out the Parsec Fan Awards yet, be sure to do that. We've got nominations going on right now. So categories like Best Film, Best TV Series, Best New Series, a whole bunch more.
Yes.
Yeah, Best Toys and Collectibles. So yeah, the more people that nominate, the better this ends up being. So get those nominations in. The best way to do your nominations, we were doing the Gmail account, but we came up with something a little better. If you'll go to the sciencefictionary.com, you will see Parsec Awards at the top. You can click on that, and everything from a list of categories, our introduction video, and a place you click on that banner there, it'll take you right in, and you can very easily make your nominations. Have either of you used the form filler? Have y'all done your nominations yet?
I did mine on Gmail, so I have to go back to that still.
Yeah, there was a snafu with the Gmail account, so a couple of people are having to redo their stuff. But
not a problem. We just go into our sent file and just,
But this way is way easier, I think, and it compiles it all in one easy place for me. And
Nice.
and you don't have to enter any. You don't have to send me if you don't want to send me your email address to make your nomination. You don't have to. All you got to do is you don't have to insert any of your information. You just go in and fill out your form, and and so we'll keep that open for another 2 to 3 weeks.
Okay.
And then we will start talking about dates for the probably by the time we wrap, we should be ready to tell you when we will be doing the final show. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what we can put together for this year.
Awesome. So thanks to everybody in the chat for hanging out. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Had a great group in the chat tonight, and always appreciate y'all hanging out. Amanda, I will have to get you on to talk some Tolkien with us at some point. And Nicole, if you decide to watch it and get caught up, let me know and come on the show, because I want to know what you think about it once you decide to give it a chance.
And we're going to go live with episode 4 this coming Sunday, correct?
Sunday at
5 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Central.
That works.
Yep.
4 p.m. row time.
Row time, yeah. One world, one time zone. All right, guys. Well, that's going to do it for tonight. Fun. So you can find our podcast as well as all of the rest of the Red 5 podcast family at Red 5 Network on Twitter. So definitely go check that out. There are, I don't even know, what are we at? Like, we're at almost 39 podcasts. 39. So if you can't find something out of 39 nerd podcasts that's for you, then I would be shocked. There's got to be something there for you. So go check it out.
DM me. I'll match you up perfectly.
And I would actually love to see a Muppet take on Tolkien. Muppets, The Hobbit done with Muppets would be incredible.
I would love that.
I'd be glued to the screen.
Yes. It's possible. We've had things like Muppet Treasure Island. And,
it's still the best version of Treasure Island.
Right.
I agree with you.
And they also did the best version of A Christmas Carol.
That's true. That's true.
So Muppets can do anything, right? Yeah. All right, guys. Well, it was great hanging out. I can't wait to come back Sunday and talk about episode 4.
Yes.
So again, thank you for everybody that's in the chat. Thank you, DB and Lunar Girl, for hanging out with us tonight.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course, anytime.
All right.
And all right, guys. Until next time, may the Force be with you.
This podcast is a member of the Red 5 Network. For more Red 5 Network podcasts and content creators, visit bio.link/Red5.